David here, your co-host of Self-Sufficient You, and pleased to have another episode of Ask the Expert. And today we have a medical focus, alternative health focus. Not sure what to call it. I'll let Dr. Tony Sandorfi tell you more about it and himself and his business. His business is The Happy Spine, TheHappySpine.ca, and located in Ottawa. And I'm really excited to share Tony with you today and his specific approach to chiropractic, which is neuro-structural. It's a big word, and I'm sure we will know more by the end of this conversation and hopefully have asked and answered some or most of your questions. So with that, I want to welcome Dr. Tony. I think he wants to be referred as Tony, so let's go with that. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I'm really happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here and part of the Self-Sufficient You community. And as a community of communities, as one of the professionals in Ottawa who is looking after helping people to maintain their health and to get them to fix them and to get them to be healthier as well, should the need arise. So, Tony, why? Why chiropractic? Why did you choose it?
Why did I choose it? It chose me, I think. Looking back, I think when I first came across chiropractic, it was because of an injury, a soccer injury, when I was a teenager. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, why don't you go see this chiropractor? He helps my mom, blah, blah, blah." And so I did, and he was fabulous. He helped me out a lot. And I thought, I saw him working and I was like, wow, you can tell he really wants to help people. And he, has a practice. He's taking care of people. People are getting better. And I thought that's something I might want to do. So here I am, 6 years later, what have you.
How old would you have been at that time? Like a late teenager, early
Yeah,
20s?
yeah. At the time I was like 16
Okay.
when I got
Yeah.
injured. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now I've been to chiropractors. I know many family and friends who've been to chiropractors, but I don't know really much other than kind of like you said, go there when I need to, and then
Yeah,
I kind of forget about it and don't know much about it. Thankfully, I haven't had a need in quite a long time,
yeah.
but I feel like I should probably go for, in terms of maintenance, but that's besides the point. I'm more interested in your particular philosophy, your specific approach. And I know that you offer, as far as I know, I haven't heard this term before, neuro-structural chiropractic. So maybe
Right.
share a little bit about your philosophy to care and your specific techniques.
Yeah, great. Um, so it's interesting in your question, you mentioned um, being um, having gone to a chiropractor before, and for various, I mean, people go to chiropractors for various reasons. But mostly it's aches and pains, low back, headaches, these kinds of things, sciatica, those kinds of things. So, and it's interesting to use the word maintain, like you want to go for maintenance, maybe you should go for maintenance. Well, I would ask you, what do you want to maintain? Um, what level do you want to maintain yourself at? And so my focus over the years has become not just helping people maintain where they're at. Like, yes, it's important to be able to recover from injuries and stress and these kinds of things, challenging times. And we bounce back to a place of relative normal function and feeling. Um, but what if you could bounce back and actually be better than you were before? So that's my focus now. And the neurostructural chiropractic care in our office, there are actually other practitioners around the region and around the world who say they focus on their focus is neuro-structural chiropractic. Um, Most of them, from what I know, focus on the structural part more so than the neural part. Um, so I focus on the neural part, which brings me into all kinds of areas. So because I focus on the balance in the nervous system, and we're talking about the balance between the fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that helps us bounce back and heal and recover from, colds, flus, injuries, stress. So those two parts of the nervous system are really important, and oftentimes um, uh, they don't get checked by medical professionals, by chiropractors, by massage therapists, physios. They're not usually looking at this balance. And why it's so important is because this underpins all the different body functions, organs, hormones. Um, it also underpins our mind-body connection and how present we are in our bodies and our mental attitude and our capacity for change and bandwidth in dealing with stress. It touches on all these different things.
So you're saying things that I've never heard a chiropractor say before. I've never heard a medical doctor say before. So some of the things that you've said, um, what if you could be even better? No one's ever
Mhm.
said that to me. No one's even opened that possibility. Often we go to see, a medical professional, whether it's a doctor or a chiropractor, because I have a problem and I just need to correct it. Right?
Yep.
Often we seek health professionals because we're suffering from something. So rarely do we seek people like you out in terms of keeping healthy and maybe optimizing their health. So maybe we can at least reduce or maybe never have to get fixed, right? Kind of thing. The other
That's it
thing,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're,
Yeah.
we're big on anticipating, say, for example, the diseases we may get in our 80s and 90s and start to do things today, whether
Yep.
it's superfoods or stretching, weight resistance, whatever it is, to
Yep.
maybe prevent or at least reduce the impact. But the other thing that you said, I think for me is even more important is I've never heard a chiropractor ever, and that's just because I haven't been to many. So for me, it's a revelation.
Yeah.
The mind, the mental, the neurological aspect. I think most people watching and listening who have had at least a knowledge of chiropractic or have been to a chiropractor is probably because I've had an injury, I've had an accident. I sit at my desk at home for 5 days a week. My back is hurting. Yeah, it's like
Yep.
like a mechanical, physical complaint,
Yep.
injury, and
Yep.
you get subluxation to try and correct that. But I really am interested in the holistic aspect, what you said, right? Firing up
Right.
the nervous system that needs to be fired up, maybe turning down, the other
Yep.
part. That's really, really quite interesting.
Yeah. 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 And what it leads into really, for me, and it's the most rewarding part of my work, I find, is that people, and this is why I was really excited to be invited to your podcast, because my ultimate goal with people is to help them become more self-sufficient so that they don't have to come and see me.
You're trying to
Um,
put yourself out of business. For you,
it,
that's
it
success.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And but mind you, there's a lot of business to go around. Like a lot of people are in need, especially now with mental health in particular, um, being on the rise, like problems and challenges with mental health. Um, but I'm looking to teach people about their bodies, about how the bodies can really work for them, um, with breath, with energy, with focus, how they can learn to focus, how they can learn to move in order to create more health for themselves, more balance, more connection, and more productivity, more productivity. Um, and I think there's a I don't I link it back to our culture. Um, our culture tends to be fairly mechanistic, and like you hear people talk about the body in terms of a machine, oftentimes, or at the very best a computer. But we are so much more than that, and science is still catching up with the human body and what it's capable of, right? Um, so the more people can know about how they can help themselves, the better their lives are going to be, and the better everybody else's lives are going to be too, for that matter, for their families, for their coworkers. Yeah.
So maybe what are what's something or a couple of things that you think is worthwhile that someone can do to help them feel better based on kind of what you've said?
So I normally recommend for people to, one of the basic things that you can do is when you wake up in the morning, consciously breathe. Put your hands on your body and breathe into your body and just feel it. Be with it. Notice where the movement is happening and where the movement isn't happening. And just by doing that, you're exercising circuitry between your body and your brain, and you are informing your brain as to what the state of things are. And that's much better than the first thing, jumping out of bed and getting on your phone or checking the news or, various things like that. Um, and doing the same thing before you go to bed. Same thing, like feel the effects of the day. And oftentimes the problem, if you will, with the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight is that it's in charge of helping us survive. Okay, so when we're trying to survive, and we can't take any more information or action or what have you, the sympathetic nervous system actually creates a block between the brain and the body so that too much information is not going to get up there. Okay. And that shows up in our bodies as less awareness. So what tends to happen over time, over a period of 10, 20, 30, 40 years, is less awareness of ourselves. And we often actually need symptoms to wake us up and to say, hey, pay attention.
And by then it's a bit not too late, but
No,
by
it's not too
then it's
late.
not too far, right?
It's
Yeah.
it's yeah, yeah. It could have been avoided possibly, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so so if it's happened, if it's gone too far, and and um you're not as aware as you should be or could be, um, you're not in tune as much as you could be. Um, you might as well learn from that as opposed to repeating the same thing over and over. Like you can have symptoms and stay unaware, or you can have symptoms and become aware of what you've been doing, how you've been living your life, the habits, the patterns, the behaviors, the perceptions, the attitudes, all of that, how that impacts you and your health. So at the end of the day, notice, breathe into your body and notice what the day feels like to you. You might still be holding an argument from the morning with your spouse or with your child, or tension from work with your boss or what have you. You might still be holding that. And if you can, before you go to bed, acknowledge it, let it go, breathe it out, then you're going to sleep better. You're not going to carry it over into the next day. It's not going to affect you're not going to show up. It's not going to show up in your dreams.
A bit of a
So
self-diagnosis, right? A bit of a self-awareness,
yeah,
whether it's in the morning and or before bed,
yeah,
to kind of maybe trigger the mind, because it starts with the mind, right? It starts with the spirit, gets to the mind, and then it manifests to the body, right? So what you're saying is if you can kind of start by triggering being more self-aware, and for example, oh, I realize that, oh, my leg is stiff, or I seem to be tense today because I know I have an important meeting this afternoon, and
Hmm.
oh, you're then you may get some physical manifestations of short breathing or something. So it's a bit of a self-diagnosis just to kind of set the tone right for the
Yeah,
day, which maybe stimulates some hormones, right?
yeah, yeah. And I know people, some people will like, let's say they have an important meeting that day and they're feeling nervous, anxious, what have you, and they'll give themselves a pep talk, or they'll call a friend and get the friend to get them a pep talk. And that that's really cool. That's working through the mind, but you can also give yourself a pep talk with your body. So there's a difference, for example, like if somebody who's feeling nervous and anxious and is not sure of themselves, they're going to be holding themselves a certain way. They're going to be breathing a certain way. Now compare that with somebody who is self-assured, who knows they're going to succeed, who can see themselves succeeding on the other side of the challenge. They're going to be breathing differently. That's going to be a different level of energy. And all you need to do is shift that within your body. Use what you have, your breathing, your focus, your energy, and your movement. And you can create that state for yourself. And then you're ready. And it's almost like, yeah, you can go about it through the mind and talk yourself into something, or you can actually influence your mind through your body, where the mind goes, okay, we're doing this. Let's do it.
Reminding yourself, it's not to trick yourself.
No,
It's to remind yourself that, yeah, you've been doing this for a long time. You can do this in your sleep. You've been preparing for the past 3 days. You know that the last time you did it, you got all worried for no reason, and it turned out just fine. This is
exactly.
just as another one of those,
Yep.
and so it's not just talking to yourself. It's how to talk to yourself, right? Some
Yeah.
people can get themselves all worked up
Hmm.
on the other side, but on the flip side, they can get themselves all worked down, maybe,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
relaxing the nervous system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think one of the ideas behind self-sufficiency is people realizing that they can be in the driver's seat as opposed to their conditioned fears, or how they feel uncertain, or they might not feel like they're enough. Um, those are those are things that we learn from early childhood, and they're in the subconscious and whatnot, and they present themselves in the body, but and the mind. But those can be overridden. You can create something new for yourself, and create new patterns, new habits, new energy flows.
There's a lot of trauma that people have suffered over the past few years,
Mm,
and like you said, and which can also stem from childhood, and it still affects a lot of people today, and we wonder why we react in certain situations. Right? And often it's a trauma that is still manifesting in adults, and they often don't understand it, and they don't
mm,
like when they behave like that, but at least being aware that it exists, and maybe starting to learn some techniques, because what it is, it's often a imprint on your nervous system that remembers,
hmm.
right? Someone who is
Absolutely.
quite shy, or gets afraid of groups, and we're getting into Christmas season, and maybe office parties and family get-togethers, and maybe some people are getting a bit anxious of, I don't want to walk into a room full of 50 people all dressed up. I don't like that, and maybe the reason is because of when they're a child, like, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what are some things that people can do to, I mean, you're not gonna solve that one in a couple of meditation sessions,
No, 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 no,
or breath work, but
no.
I guess probably some of the techniques you just said may be useful, right?
Yeah, I think if you're just starting to tackle something like this, the example that you gave, I would say see if there's a way of navigating through the experience, but staying in the experience as much as you can. So let's say it's dinner with family over the holidays, and you want to be able to do it as best you can without losing your mind or being triggered or whatever. Give yourself permission to step away if you need to. You can always just go to the bathroom and have a break, like a real break from everybody, be by yourself. Um, while you're in that situation, keep breathing. Keep breathing. We often, when we get too nervous, we stop breathing, right? So sometimes it's just all you can do is just keep breathing. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do. And then hopefully, the more times you do it, you start to feel like I can actually get through this better and better and better. And you start to turn the tide and become more resourceful.
Yeah, that's really, I think, good practice. And I know myself and probably a bunch of others are starting to think of what's ahead. And our preference would be to just stay at home and not do that. But then, you can't. And once you're in those situations, you realize it was actually a positive experience, right? It's just to kind of
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
that motivation to actually get there and do it, and maybe
yeah.
apply some techniques when the triggers happen.
And even understanding that that's how the mind works with most people, as far as I can tell. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we lost our German Shepherd, and we love dogs, and he was with us for 12 years, and it was coming time, like there was something we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. We took him to the vet, they did tests, they couldn't find out, but we knew there was something going on with him. Not exactly sure what, and we thought, okay, chances are maybe it's coming time when he's going to go. And then it became pretty evident based on the symptoms that he was having. Like he couldn't walk down the stairs anymore. I had to carry him to the car or what have you. Um, but he still seemed to want to be with us. And I found myself sitting with him, and my mind went into this place of trying to predict what it's going to be like when he passes. Like, I guess it was just a natural thing, maybe, that my mind was trying to do to help prepare me for his passing. And then at one point, it dawned on me, like I was looking at him and I'm like, but he's still here. I just, Tony, just be with him.
Enjoy the moment. Yeah.
Just enjoy them, be in the moment, right? So every time I caught myself going into the future, trying to think of, oh my God, what it's gonna be like, I would bring myself back. And one of the things that would help me bring myself back is focusing on my breathing, almost like in a meditation. And that would help me come back to the here and now, and I was able to navigate through that experience that way. Um, yeah,
So in this breathing, we've had quite a few conversations with various folks on various topics, and breathing actually comes up quite often in sometimes the weirdest contexts. And I wouldn't expect to have a breathing conversation with a chiropractor, but I'm happy that we're doing that right now. So when it comes to breathing and chiropractic, what
yeah.
what is the link? Is it a spinal fluid change? Is it what is the connection exactly?
Okay. From a chiropractic perspective, there's a couple of things to look at. Um, First of all, from the nervous system perspective, there's nervous control of the diaphragm. Those nerves come from the brain through the neck. And sometimes there can be tension and distortion in the neck that can create tension on the nerves that can affect your breathing. Um, Mechanically, it can affect your breathing. It can stunt your breathing or limit your breathing. Um, there's the sympathetic nervous system that over time creates, like, when you are in survival mode, You are, some people will refer to it. Let me see if I can remember the term. Now it won't come to me because I'm looking for it. But people become apprehensive, they become more tense, their muscles get tighter, and the muscles between the ribs, they're called intercostal muscles, they get tighter. And so the flexibility of the chest cavity
Right.
becomes less. So you can't breathe as deeply.
You're not
So
getting
your
enough
diaphragm
oxygen.
can be, sorry?
Yeah. You're not getting as much oxygen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so those are two ways that a chiropractor can help in terms of the mechanical tension on the nerves and the sympathetic nervous system helping to turn that down. But there's also a really cool thing that happens when we breathe, and that is that if you look at somebody's spine and they're lying down, there's actually a wave that happens as they breathe in and out. It's called the respiratory wave. And what it does, if it can actually move through the whole spine, it's actually rocking the vertebra one by one as it passes through. It's like you think of a wave in the ocean,
Yeah.
right? And that can actually help release tension from the joints, from the discs, from the small little muscles in the back. And so it's a way, so when we breathe, we can actually release tension from the spine.
So another important reason to breathe. I mean, I kind of say it. I don't mean to sound flippant, but I'm not a good breather. It's and people around me. I keep saying that. It sounds kind of silly because obviously we need to breathe to live. But I find my breathing is shallow. I don't take the time to have slow, deep breaths, and I bet you a lot of people are in the same boat. And it's amazing to me how much we are already equipped as humans to take care of ourselves and to correct some of our own issues. For example, when it comes just to breathing, just taking the time to
Yeah,
maybe stop what we're doing, like you said, whether you're waking up in the morning, just to take some deep breaths to check in with yourself, and the physical benefits of spending that time actually being mindful of your breathing for all the effects that you just mentioned. And it's free of charge. You can do it wherever you are.
it's you have it with you wherever your body goes, you have it. Yeah. And you don't need an extra bag or anything like that. It's just straight here.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, I find that really cool. Just going to switch gears a little bit. In your practice, what are some of the common complaints, issues that you're hearing, say, lately, say over the past year or a couple of years, whatever? Or is there a pattern?
There definitely is. Yeah, there definitely is. I would say that like pretty much everybody who comes into the office has some degree of survival mode happening in their nervous systems. Okay. Not everybody, but most people. And since the last 1 or 2 years, that's gone up in terms of intensity. Like people are more stressed out, people are more on edge. Um, and and in a way, like it's good for my practice that people are still coming in with complaints, traditional chiropractic complaints, but they've heard about how we're different, and a lot of people have heard about how we're different, and they're coming in because of concerns about their mental health, about stress, tension in their bodies, um, those kinds of things. It's like, you may be older, you may be, whatever age you are, it doesn't mean that you have to suffer with tension and nervous system dysfunction, you know. Um, it takes away from us being able to enjoy our lives, really, no matter what state we're in or part of our lives or anything like that. So I would say that's the biggest sign or biggest change that I've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I hear that from many professionals, and to hear it now from you in the chiropractic industry, I'm not surprised.
Mm,
Uh, but it's interesting to hear from you as a chiropractor the mental aspect,
Hmm.
because we all know people are stressed and have suffered some trauma over the past few years, and their lives have been changed, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, and the stress of just managing and the unknown of what's ahead and how it manifests itself into not just stress mentally, but like you said, aches and pains and sore backs and just everything you've said in terms of just the body just not being healthy right now
Hmm. Hmm.
because of the stress.
And
Um,
if I could piggyback on that for a second, um, going back to when we first started talking, I mentioned how you can be better than you
yes,
were before. Um, I think that like part of the survival process is to just survive, right? Like, and it's an important part, and sometimes that's all you can do, right? Through a process of life, um, or through a period of life. Um, but we always have at our disposal the ability to thrive and get more out of life than what we were getting before. And I I think in general, people have low expectations of themselves, not because they want to, but just that's just kind of like, oh, this is as good as it's going to get in this container that I'm in. And once they're able to see beyond that, once they're able to experience like, oh, I'm actually feeling younger, I'm actually feeling like I have more energy and these kinds of things, then they start to realize, oh, things can be better than they used to be. Yeah.
their whole outlook is based on the very, very short term, right? When you're under a
Hmm.
lot of stress, right? Um, your bar is very low. You just want to
Yes.
get out of it, and you'll do
Yeah,
just about anything to get out of that situation. So you're
sure.
not even thinking about next month. You're just thinking about how do I get through today, or how am I going to
Exactly.
do it tomorrow, right? So,
Exactly.
so getting through the short term, what do you think? It probably opens up then the possibility or a new outlook for them to start thinking about, in the short term, okay, good. I'm out of that existing flight or fight situation. Now
Yeah.
I can take a breath. Now I can maybe start to think about what the future may look like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe start to think about how I could be even better, right?
That that is the road that a lot of people take. Yeah, where they have to get through the time of survival to even think about thriving. Sometimes what happens with some people is they're able during the time of survival, they're able to see that they're, how do I put this? The energy that they're putting out there, that they're expending to survive. Okay. Some of that energy is going to something that they're doing in their lives that if they just turn something around, turned a switch from off to on, then all of a sudden they would have a lot more energy and they would actually jumpstart themselves out of survival. Even so it's kind of like some people, while in survival mode, have this realization and are able to expand from there. They don't have to wait till they're through it in like the situation or what have you has passed. They're already on to something bigger and better for themselves, which is really cool to see sometimes.
Yeah, if you can see it as an individual while you're in that situation, I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
can you think of a case like someone, obviously you don't mention their name, someone who is even better than they were before they saw you, treated by you, and maybe they didn't even know that it was even possible. Can you think of a
Well,
good case?
that I won't say that's 100% of my patients, but a lot of them, a lot of them, and it's partly. So I'll give you like a conventional, a common example. So somebody comes in. with conventional chiropractic complaints. My back hurts, my neck hurts, headaches, sciatica, what have you, low back pain, disc problems. And I work with them for a while, and they come in and say to me, you know, my back is starting to feel better, and but I'm also noticing other stuff. I'm noticing how I'm nicer to my wife, and I notice I have more energy, and I notice that this other thing that was bothering me isn't bothering me anymore. Like so, like digestion, for example. So they start to see all kinds of like bonus
Yeah.
side effects of the work, and they'll notice it in different areas of their lives, in their relationships, in their productivity, um, and various things like that.
Exponential gains, right? Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah.
just
That's a great way
bonuses.
of putting it. Yeah, yeah,
It's like anything; things can spiral out of control pretty quickly, but then things can spiral into control as well, just by, like you said, turning maybe one little dial in the right direction, and
yeah.
maybe you wake up with a bit more energy that day, and your mental outlook has improved, and maybe that's enough to motivate you to do something, and then just goes that way, right?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's how it happens.
yeah. The
Cool.
one thing is we need good role models in our lives to help us turn that dial, and not everyone has that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I go to work
Yeah, and you'll be
is to
busy for
help
a long
people that
time,
way.
sadly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. And that's what you're doing with your
one
website.
thing I maybe wanted to end it off
Yeah.
with the short time we have left is I noticed on your website you have a really interesting blog which talks about really interesting subjects, not precisely what the mechanics of chiropractic. They're more like life stories and maybe client case studies, perhaps if I
Right,
have.
right.
You have one called the light bulb moment, and I was just fascinated by that. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was all about?
Now, if I can remember.
Yeah, okay. I assume that you can remember.
Yeah. Um, so the light bulb moment, I mean, most people know what I would mean by that. It's like when you suddenly have this idea, or there's been this, ongoing problem or situation or something you've been trying to figure out, and suddenly the solution presents itself out of nowhere, right? The clouds part, and there it is. And my point, I think I was trying to make in that article is that it can happen spontaneously, and it's wonderful when it does. And at the same time, we can learn how to actually create that for ourselves. That feeling, that experience, we can actually, because when you start to access more than just your intellect, your emotions, your intellect, there's something else that we call gut feelings or intuition that I would say that intellect is like what traditional computers can create, and um, intuition and gut feelings are what quantum computing is looking to do. Taking a lot more information, synthesizing it, putting it together, and coming up with an answer. And you can't look at that answer and go, "Oh yeah, I can see the path that you took from point A to point B." No, it doesn't work that way, right? It's holographic. It's three-dimensional or more. Um, so one of the things that I strive to teach my patients in the longer term is how to be able to access their intuitive feelings more, to trust their bodies, to get information that way. Because oftentimes, we may not know how we know this, but we just know it, and it's the right thing in the right time, the light bulb moment. So that's what that's about.
It's almost like we've been so conditioned, whether it's through our school or in our adult life, to get the right answer, right?
Hmm. The
It's
one right
ones and
answer.
zeros, everything's black and white, it's right or wrong, and get the right answer. But if we're always trying to get the right answer, or we feel like we need to say the right answer, we're not leaving a lot of time to let other things come into us.
Hmm.
Because what is a right answer for you? Maybe it's a wrong answer for somebody else. But if we start to slow down and open ourselves up just to have other things come into us, we may get more light bulb moments than we never even imagined.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a way of, I, I feel like I'm sitting here trying to explain myself, and then you come along and say it a different way in a beautifully eloquent way. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's what I should have said.
Like I said, it's not a right or wrong. It's
Yeah,
just
that's right.
the way we say things. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm right either. It's just my opinion. So, if I'm a new client in your practice, what would be something I could expect if I'm a new client? What would be kind of the process? How would you take me through that?
Well, okay, so normally we meet for a consultation first, and that's just a discussion, a 20 to 30-minute discussion to see, what is it you're looking for help with? Um, and can I help you? And if I can, what's that going to look like for you? So you have some idea before we even get started on anything that, okay, yeah, he understands where I'm at, and I think I understand what he's going to be doing to, the process that we're going to go through. So if we can come to, the same page on that, then we typically book an exam because we want to be able to measure objectively what's happening in the nervous system, what's happening structurally. We look at tension patterns. We look at all kinds of different measures to create a baseline from where we're going to start. And then typically we do a series of visits to help change the nervous system patterning, to help change the tension patterns. And then we typically do a follow-up exam down the road sometime to kind of bookend that initial phase of care and to make sure that, the measurements that we took the first time have changed. And it's typically with the nervous system, what we find is that uh, then there's nervous system improvement, and it's got to get up over a speed bump. And once it's over that speed bump, it's reached a new level of functioning, and it's not going to go back to the way it was before. So some people find that when they first start, sometimes people will not go through the whole process until they get over that speed bump. So they stop before that, and eventually they find themselves going back
It's
to
like
to
pushing a
with
ball up a hill, right?
yeah, yeah,
Once you get
exactly.
to the crest of the hill, you're probably not going to roll backwards.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So once they get to that over that speed bump, then they're going to be more self-sufficient. Their nervous system's going to be running at a higher level, and they're going to have improvement in not just the symptoms that they came in with, but other things, other health benefits that we kind of touched on. And then after that initial phase of care, some people say, okay, yeah, thank you. I feel better. This has changed. That's better. I'll see you when I see you. And I don't see them again.
Hmm.
Um, and then some people I work with on a continual basis after that, but it's not because of symptoms. It's because they want to help improve the body mind connection, or they want to, with some people, I do a bit of coaching, self improvement type coaching, where we work with that mind body connection to help improve different aspects of how they are in their lives, like with relationships and whatnot.
Not your average chiropractor. Definitely
No,
not.
no.
Definitely not. So it's the Happy Spine. For those members who are in and around the Ottawa area, who where this sounds of interest, they can go to your website at happyspine.ca,
Mm-hmm.
thehappyspine.ca. They can call your office, email to set up a free consultation, like you said, right?
Right.
All right. Tony, thank you very much. It's been, every time I do these, I think I have a pretty good idea, and then I totally don't, and I learn so much. So
Awesome.
I really appreciate your time for spending with me today. I know our members appreciate you, and I know people in the Ottawa area are fortunate and are grateful for what you do, and the way you do it, making that connection of treating the body holistically, and I'm not trying to discount any of your colleagues at all who do fantastic traditional
Yeah.
chiropractic. They're needed, but
Yeah.
your approach and your philosophy, at least for me, sounds unbelievable, and it's a sustainable way where you're looking at the entire body. And like you said, and the one thing that sticks with me is I just don't want to be better. I want to be better than I was before, and
Hmm.
and that is
Hmm.
just such an awesome message.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate you spending time with me. And I feel like I want to talk with you more, but I know we're out of
Well,
time.
let's do another one
Sure,
maybe
sure,
in the new
sure.
year, and we'll
Yeah,
see how things are going.
yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, take care.